Uh,
Oh, not much. It is so fantastic to finally get to geek out about horror stuff with you.
Thanks, man. I wish that I was in my office at home because I think that we would see that ours are very similar.
What happens is when I do these interviews with, I ended up having Doug Bradley on, and he went 1 second and walked off and came back, and he had the same Peter Cushing bus that I had, and he was like showing them off, and I'm like, this is surreal.
That's awesome. I love it. I love your office. It looks rad.
Thank you. You're over there, by the way.
Yay!
There is a little polka dot man figure over there. I am so excited for you that you're getting to do this again and doing volume 2 of this comic.
Thank you. And thank you for being such a champion of the comic. Like, I can't tell you how much it means to me. Like when someone consistently, like, it goes beyond them just like doing an article or a post about it, when like they seem to have a vested interest, and you are one of those people. So it really does. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Oh, it was hilarious because one of the questions I was going to have for you, I've got a ton. I don't know how long I've got you, probably like 20 minutes, but I have a ton of questions.
Well, we'll go till 2:30. Is that cool? For me, I'm in Boston, so
Oh,
that's
wow.
like,
Yeah, no worries. That is perfect.
great.
So one thing I wanted to ask you about, because on some of the Count Crowley coverage, I saw a photo of you holding a Blood of Dracula comic book. And I grew up reading those. And at that time, it was so great because indie comics were really hitting their stride. And you had Blood of Dracula, you had uh, uh, Scarlet and Gaslight, which is one of my favorites, that came out in that time frame. Can you talk about how how did those indie comics influence your fandom for horror and comics?
Two things happened. First, I stumbled upon certain things between garage sale and then in the comic shop that I discovered as a kid, which was called Clint's Comics Kansas City. There was a like box of older vintage EC era, horror comics that, ranged from Golden Key stuff to you name it. And so that was like a foray. And I had seen imagery of things like Creepshow by that point, which came out when I was a little kid. So I remember being in a Rainy Day Books and thumbing through some of the art in like a Creepshow promotional material book that had a lot of homage work to classic horror comic stuff. So that was, in one sense, it was fate that it just kept like falling into my lap, and I kept becoming entranced by the pages of this stuff. The second was actively seeking, because of the art I was inspired by, from everything ranging from, but not limited to, Dungeons and Dragons manuals and box covers, to heavy metal. My neighbors had HBO when I was a little kid, and I remember heavy metal and Fire and Ice playing on those. And so seeking that kind of art when I did go to the comic shop led me to the discovery of so much fantasy and horror stuff. And by the time I was really actively collecting, I had purposefully looked into the major publishers to see what they had to offer in the way of horror. And that's how I came across, the many different incarnations of something like Dracula in the Marvel world, from Tomb of Dracula on down the line, to indie stuff like Blood of Dracula. There was so much great vampire stuff that was popping up in, smaller publications in the 80s and early 90s. And it became a lifelong passion of mine. I think that when I first found, like, in the Weird War Tales of DC Comics Creature Commandos, I found something that like basically checked all the boxes of all my dreams as a kid, and still does. I think when I found Hack and Slash when I got older, and found like the more, grotesque, in your face, blood and guts monster fighting that I love. I was, so excited by that. So it's continued to both be something I've actively pursued, and then that just by fate, I guess, kept coming into my line of sight and then mesmerizing me.
Nice. I still want you to do Red Rain. I'm going to throw that out into the universe. That still needs to happen.
Dude, there's so many, you name it, from Red Rain. I mean, if you look at, like, we always think of comic books as being the medium through which superhero stories are told, and that's true in many regards, but horror is a very close second behind superheroes, and especially when you go through indie artists and titles. And I think of, voices as important as Steve Niles, and before he was mainstream doing stuff with, Criminal Macabre, before it even had made it into, like, a major publisher's hands. And I love, oh my God, there's so much good stuff. I was just rediscovering my joy of Frankenstein Mobster the other day, and like mashing up noir with horror, and how fun that is, and how cool of a show that would make. I think about books, that deal with more serious subjects. I remember my friend Brett Neveu, who's a great playwright and screenwriter, sending me graphic novel of Vηmpire, which, I was just like, I can't believe I haven't didn't go deeper into this at one point. Like, oh, there's so much good stuff.
Yeah, Andrew Bennett, forever my love. I grew up on those comics. I still have the original runs. I like have the original comics. They're falling apart.
Soy su